film's called Contact, and it's about the last true first contact between a group of Aboriginal people who are living completely unaware of the outside world, traditionally boomerangs and spears, who came into contact with patrol officers from the Weapons Research Establishment in 1964, so it's very late. And the whole reason they came into contact was because they were planning missile tests, and those rockets were due to land in this area in the middle of nowhere in the desert, and they didn't think anyone was there, but they thought we better make sure. And so they drove out and found this group of 20 women and children, like I say, completely unaware that the outside world existed. So you can imagine their shock, seeing white people for the first time, seeing a car for the first time. They thought they were going to eat them, and so they ran like hell. And the story is about partly the chase, and trying to, make that contact, but also the meeting, which was filmed in 16mm, and which is extraordinary. I think it's like up there with the most extraordinary pieces of footage in Australian history. And what's equally extraordinary is that both sides of the story are still alive to tell it. So on the one side, on the Mardu side, the Aboriginal side, is this woman who was 17 at the time, Yuili, and she's now 64, and she actually takes us back to where all of this contact took place. Like, she takes us to the very tree where she saw a car for the first time and tells us, what that felt like and what her emotions were. And on the other side, we have the patrol officer's perspective, like of trying to, the problem of actually trying to, get these people before the rocket, lands on them, which was only a matter of days away. So that's what the story is about. Well, the story was actually published in a book written by Yuili, was one of the authors, and there were two others, anthropologists who had worked with Yuili in a very remote community for the last 18 years. And they wrote this story into a book, and my co-director, Martin Butler, came across the book and just phoned up and said, listen, do you want to make a film together? And they thought, oh, we should all meet first and to see if we'd all get along. And that first meeting was a little bit of a disaster, actually, because when we met Yuili, she's culturally very different, as you'd expect, to us. So like, you make small talk like hello, it's a nice day, how are you, doesn't mean anything. Like, she would just be completely like this, indifferent, not rude, just indifferent. And it wasn't until we started talking about family and country that we all started to get on. And then it became like the beginnings of a great friendship, actually. Like, at the end of the process, we're all embracing, and Yuli's actually named my baby's son, gave him an Aboriginal name. So it's been a wonderful story like that. In terms of working together with Martin, I don't know, I think it's a very fluid relationship. I'm on camera, he's on sound, so it's very small, and we both have a very similar aesthetic and an idea of what we want, and there's actually very little, talking to one another whilst we're shooting, because we know exactly what we want. And I would, like to add that I'm a bit suspicious of the name director in this context for this film, because it felt like Yuili was a director, as were some of the other Mardu there, and I feel more like a musician, like in a band, like jamming away, and we're all sort of like trying to find the same song, and we're all good at what we do, and then eventually we make this wonderful bit of music together, which is what I think this film is. Probably the best review that we ever got was actually from the Mardu themselves, because we showed them a fine cut of it, just to make sure that we'd actually got it right, because it's a big problem if we didn't, and so we went right back out to the desert and we showed them the film, and we'd been cutting away for like 9 months on this thing, and we screened it, and as soon as the screening was over, they all got up and walked out the room, didn't say a word, and we're like, oh no, we've made a big mistake here. And eventually we went over to their camp and asked what they thought of it, and they'd all been talking amongst each other, and they turned to us and said, you got it right. And so as far as I'm concerned, that's the best possible review. But how it's been received, it's at its premiere at the Sydney Film Festival, it won Best Documentary. Since then, it's won every award that's possible in Australia, like the Best Direction of the Directors Guild, the Australian Film Institute Best Feature Documentary. The last prize that we got was the Australian Prime Minister's Prize for History, which has never been given to a film before. It's always been books, and so it was like quite an honour to receive that. So I think it's really touched a nerve in Australia, but it seems to have been, wherever it's travelled around the world, people seem to have a similar reaction. I think there's quite a universal story. There's lots of human elements to it, and I think it says something about modernity as well. It's quite a deep film, I think, that a lot of people can relate to, and so it's won some film festivals overseas as well. So yeah, it's a great film to be associated with.